Hello, welcome to January 25th, 2023. My name is Kurt, and this video is my daily Good Life meditation. It's something that I do each and every morning, shortly after waking up. It's now 4:41 a.m. I do this in order to remember my life objectives and principles, to enumerate them individually, one by one, think about them, adjust them if necessary, add to them, or even remove them if I have to. Although I've never done that. I've always adjusted or added, always tinkered, improved, tuned, and augmented. So it's been an iterative approach over the last, since, well, it's 4 years, since December 2018, 19, 20, 22. Yeah, just 4 years I've been doing this every damn day. Don't really think I've missed a single day. Because I have two ways of doing it. I can do it in depth the way I plan to do today, in which I have every day in 2023 so far, or I can do what's called the lightning round, which is to do a quick recitation of the items one by one without any depth or detail. I allow myself that, and I can do it in my head too. If I don't want to turn on the camera, I can just run it through my head, in which case I can do it in about 10 minutes. Anyway, I do this for two reasons. One, to make these objectives and principles my own, although they are my own. I may have borrowed some of the ideas, or a lot of the ideas, from my reading or my experience of others that have embarked on the same efforts. Then labels are my own, the ordering is my own, the phrasing is my own. This creed is mine. And as a result, since it's mine, I'm responsible to maintain it. And that's why I do this. That's the first reason. The second reason that I do it is that I want to share it, because it works. It works really well, but it takes a lot of hard work. And because the reason I started doing this was with my YouTube career as a guy named Softypapa. I would get contacted over the years by people in their 20s, typically young men, asking about how to embark on life and how to live well. In fact, I got one just the other day. And I think that these objectives and principles are good utilities towards that end. And I want to share them with anybody that might be interested. So it's a way of sharing a tool and a methodology, a creed that I found works well. So with that, let's get started. The first thing that I'll do is think about yesterday and how I did applying my objectives and principles to the obstacles, challenges, and opportunities that I met. Recite the creed, work on the creed. It's not just a blank recitation, although it does come out that way sometimes. I do say things rather by rote. I do intend to make it more of a critical evaluation than simply a mere saying of the rosary. A rosary to know God. And then I'll finish this exercise by planning for the coming day. Let's begin. First, yesterday and last night. Slept really well last night. Went to bed. In fact, I passed out so quickly that my wife had found my glasses in the bed. I guess I just laid down and put my head down and put my phone down and fell asleep with my glasses, and they came off or something, but there they were. And then the next thing I know, the alarm went off at 4 a.m. That's like the second time this month that's happened. So my mind is clearly, it's interesting. I'm doing better as I head into my vacation, right? Which is a bit of a practice for retirement, when I would hand off my responsibilities to the team and go on with my way. That's kind of what's happening right now. In fact, I had that meeting yesterday with the team, showing them what I call the project story. I'm a project manager, IT project manager, so I was showing them the project story and giving them an update on where we stood with all of the project tales, tasks, activities. It's funny that I use story, because story actually is a project management term. Different type of story, not an agile story. So we had that meeting, and I think they're going to do just fine. I don't just think they're going to do fine. They're going to do just fine. So I feel good. I feel like things are being handed off, even if it's only for 2 weeks. All right, so other than that, I did have one big challenge yesterday, interesting challenge, a very interesting one. Now, my first objective is the objective of to be always ready to die. And I think the name says it all about what this objective is about. And I don't really talk about it very often. I run through mental exercises in my mind about how I would handle certain circumstances. But I don't talk about it much, mainly out of respect for those that might be, in fact, facing down death. And I don't want to be flippant or careless with my thoughts or philosophizing on a subject that may be very close to us, to some. So I leave it at the high levels, but I do endeavor to prepare myself to die by making sure that I have my life affairs in order, my relationships in order, and my life's work done, if not finished, as I like to say. But I had an interesting incident happen yesterday that gave me a chance to weigh in a little bit on this subject. I was running on the beach. In fact, I was on Huntington Beach, and I was just approaching the pier from the north side. A beautiful low tide, so I was able to run way out on the sand flats, further than I'd ever seen the water receive, although I've only lived here for 3 months. It was the lowest tide I'd seen for sure. When my phone rang, which was in my hand, I answered it, and it was my physician, my doctor. And he said, "Can we talk?" And I said, "Yes." And I knew he was going to call. That's why I had my phone handy, because we had a phone appointment for this afternoon to go over some results of an exam. And he called and he said, "It's about that tumor. I have a tumor here in my abdomen, and it's been there for a long time. And doctors have looked at it in the past and decided, 2 separate doctors, that it was benign. But the second doctor warned me that, well, they both told me it'll grow. But the second doctor warned me, and this was 10 years ago, that it could be a problem in the future. And he recommended that I have it removed back then. And maybe I should have followed his advice. I didn't. Emiko was asking me the same question last night. Why didn't you have it removed? Anyway, I didn't, and it's gotten bigger. Bad me. And so anyway, I thought maybe it's time to do what the doctor said and have it removed. So I went and saw my doctor. They did an initial examination, and the doctor called me yesterday just at the foot of the pier there to tell me that he wanted further tests, that there were irregularities in there, and he sounded nervous. And he told me he wants to have an ultrasound and further tests. And I thought, okay, so he gave me a phone number to call to schedule the appointment, and I went on with my run. Now, running back from the Huntington Beach Pier, the 1 mile back to the tower, lifeguard tower 18, where I keep my shoes, my stuff, my towel, I had a mile to think. Here it is, Kurt. Not a prognosis of death by a long shot, but the doctor calling me back about a growing tumor that you were warned about in the past, with a sense of anxiety or anxiousness in his voice, telling you we need more tests. No, certainly not a prognosis of death at all, but something to weigh on, something to consider. I found myself, and this is where I'll be frank, I found myself at ease, literally thinking to myself, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And I just immediately had to ask myself, well, how far, if it turns out that it's really bad, how far do you want to go, Kurt? And my decision is within a reasonable amount of time. I don't want to, break my family of our assets, or cause undue pain and difficulty unto anybody. So I would take reasonable treatments. Of course, I would require more thought and talk with my wife, but this is just me doing a 1 mile run summary of what I would do. I thought I would take, if it turns out it is something bad, I will take whatever reasonable steps I can take to mitigate the symptoms, hopefully to maybe overcome it. mitigate the symptoms and hold back death if it's a dangerous one. But beyond that, I would let myself die. And by the time I reached the lifeguard tower 18, I had a simple plan in place. Fight it in a reasonable manner, but not to extremes. I will accept death if it's come for me. And there were a couple of interviews, and I was satisfied with that result. Now let's see what would happen. I asked myself if it turns out that it really is the case. But I felt at the moment that it was pretty. This is my true feeling on the matter. And I'll add just a little bit more. I have long considered that if something came to that end, and there was no easy way out, that I would find a way out myself. And so that was also on my mind as well. Now, that's a lot to think about in the course of a mile. Now, I got home from my run, and frankly, I didn't even think about it, and I didn't even tell Yumiko yet. I thought I'll just go about my business. We'll talk about it later, because we had to take a dog walk afterwards. I thought I'll clean everything up, take care of the dogs, and then we'll talk about it later. I didn't want to worry her. I don't want to, but adults have to face reality, right? So again, nothing yet, just the concern from the doctor, and it was mainly his voice that kind of got me, and his description of irregularities and something we need to investigate, etc. Maybe this is a matter of course. I don't know. I've never had this happen before. But I went about my business and was doing my stuff when the phone rang again. And this is like 7 p.m. now. It's my doctor again, right? He calls back and he says, "How was the run?" I said, "It was good. It was good. All right, good." He said, "Well, I want to talk to you some more." And apparently he'd been talking to the radiologist or somebody between the first call and the next one. He says, "Kurt," he says, I was talking to others, and we need to get that out of you. So why don't you?" He gave me a different number. He says, "Don't bother with the other number. We're not about the test. We're gonna get you on track with surgery." So he gave me another number to arrange with the surgeon for pre-surgical consultation. So, boy, said that way, that sounds a little more serious, doesn't it? So that's where I stand right now. I went out with my dog walk with Yumiko, and we talked, and she admonished me for not taking care of this a decade ago. Deservedly so. So I will call a second number today and make an appointment and take care of this after we're gone. As for my mental state, nothing's changed. I still feel exactly the same way. And what's really interesting, and we'll see how this goes, is my test of this objective, which is to be always ready to die, is so far holding up well. I'm not feeling anxious about this. I feel more anxious about deadlines at work than I do about this. I think it's because of my perspective on the universe. And again, we'll see what happens as things progress. But I think it's my perspective of the universe. I don't believe I have a soul. I don't believe there's any God. I don't think there's any afterlife. There's no punishment or reward. I do believe that the science shows that the universe is going to carry on for trillions of years, winding into cold heat death, as they call it, right? Winding down into a cold, unified blanket of static emptiness, dark and cold. That's the universe's fate. What difference does it make if I'm a part of that empty nothingness for a few years or a decade or more longer than otherwise, right? I mean, if it turns out this is a tumor and there's something bad, and maybe it's just a sign of something else, and et cetera, et cetera. Whoa, and what does it matter if I'm gone next year versus a decade or more from now? Now, of course, it does matter in very clear-cut and important ways with regard to my family, right? I mean, let's look at the consequences, right? First of all, my daughter isn't done with college and she hasn't started her own life and settled. And that is my last objective as a father in my active parenting years, is to see my daughter safely into her own adult life. That's why I won't retire and go back to Japan until that is done. Even though I could retire today, Yumiko and I could jet off now. We won't. We'll stay behind until Emily is out of school and settled. We want to be here. We don't want to leave her alone. We don't want to leave her struggling, of course. So that's the very immediate one. Now, of course, Emily could get by. She could finish off on her own. It'd be more of a struggle without my active contributions in parenting, etc. For all of that. She still needs us. That's one consequence. So I would like to stay at least a couple more years to see that through. Consequence to my wife would be, of course, she'd lose her partner. She'd be facing these latter years alone, and it would be a significant hit on our pension. My pension is mostly anchored on me. So although we do have our retirement account savings and Social Security pending for both of us. So we'd lose the Social Security mainline benefit for me, which is the bigger one, and we'd lose the pension, my pension, which is, we wouldn't lose it, but it would be diminished. It would go into what are called survivor benefits, which are not as much as the mainline benefits. So it would be an impact on Yumiko's long-term well-being. But she does have her father and her sister back at home in a brand new home that they built together a couple of years ago with an empty room. And they all have a very good relationship. So she could go back and live in that room with her family, and she'd be on the pension that I would leave her behind. She'd be doing just fine. She'd do well. So she'd be okay. As for me, my book is done. Going Alone is done, if not finished. Literally, if I was told that I've got 2 weeks to live, and what do you want to do to finish your book? The only thing I would do is order a couple copies to keep around, so that at least there's a few more hard copies around. There's no more writing to do. It's all done, unless I find more typos like I did last week, or that one error that Andrew finally gratefully helped me overcome, because I had cut and paste something wrong. Silly me, but that's fixed. In fact, I redid that whole chapter of The Good Life. It's all in nice shape now. I worked hard on that on Sunday. Parker and Allie, my niece and nephew, yeah. I'd like to be there for them, see them through. I would like to finish my Dr. Johnson series. I've got 14 of these, yeah, and I've got a long ways to go. I would like to read Walden again. I have a whole stack of books over there I'd like to read. I can do without any of that. And Parker and Allie will be fine. Yumiko will be fine. Emily will be fine. I am ready to die. All my relationships are in good order. Even my mom, who our relationship is in as good as order as I possibly can be. I'm ready to go to oblivion, where it's not a place to go. It's a state of nothing, right? I'm ready to join it's not even that. You don't join oblivion, because there's nothing, there will be no me. I'm ready to be no more. That's fine. And it's not because I'm tired of this life. It's just because I think I'm abiding my first principle, which is to be always ready to die. And although I don't want to die, I have a lot of fun things and interesting things I have yet to do and that I want to do. If it comes to that, then so be it. Even if it's at my own hands. Which I will do if, I hope I'll have the courage to do, if not now, if it comes to that, where rather than being a long, lingering, expensive, dreadful suffering, I will just disappear, and that'll be the end of me. And I've broached that subject a little bit with both Yumiko and Emily. We need to talk about that a little more. It's a difficult one, right? I mean, try to imagine myself on the other hand, right? Although, that maybe it's a consequence of my philosophy, right? I mean, like Eric. I mean, I do have some experience with this, right? I mean, Eric, I mean, my first book, No More Looking Out for Number One, it's up there on the shelf, is my experience with my own best friend, deciding to kill himself. And he and I talking about it, and I've been unsuccessful in convincing him not to do that, and he did it, and he did it. And then the impact that had on my life, which was like a great meteor strike upon my life, which I must say sent me on the course of going alone. Eric's suicide, Eric's deliberate suicide, and all that was wrapped up in my inability to understand what he had done was the thing that headed me down this whole path that led to all the books that I've written, 4 books so far, the development of the Good Life Creed, the recovery of being a rather selfish, conceited man to one that is focused on my obligations, my responsibilities, my marriage, my commitment to the person that holds this other ring, the family that we created, the jobs that I take on, the responsibilities that I take on the job, and the efforts to forge a good, an interesting life, in an ironic life, as Christopher Hitchens might like to say, out of the tapestry and the materials of a universe where none of that seems to really matter in any objective sense. So yeah. Others that don't hold that view might be similarly struck by a meteor strike of me offing myself if that was the case. But it's a heavy but. It might be a good thing for anyone who's interested in philosophy, but it might be a meteor strike to anybody else. Anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself, am I not? Although it's not a light thing to have a doctor, two phone calls from a doctor in the course of one evening, one to tell you we need to look into it, the other to tell you we got to get that thing out of you. So I guess it's not vain or wanton speculation. Yet, I feel fine about it. In fact, I didn't think about it at all last night after talking to Yumiko about it, who took it in her usual, very sober. It's not like Yumiko's unfeeling in any way, but she's the most sober, reasonable human being I've ever met, and which is one of the very endearing qualities I have of her. She's also the wisest person I've ever met. She's figured all of this stuff out before she even began thinking about it. Well, anyway, with that was the big challenge for yesterday, and it will remain a challenge until I either get this thing out of me, or I mitigate it whatever way they're going to do, or it does whatever it's going to do. In any case, I will be all right looking at what is within my control and what is not within my control, which is another one of my objectives. It's number 6. Speaking of which, I guess it's time to get on with it, right? Let's talk about the good life. All right, beginning with the objectives, and there are 7 of them, and I will give myself a little bit of latitude to go quickly this morning, not mainly necessarily the lightning round, because I'm not pleased with myself when I do it that way, but given that I do have work this morning, and these dogs, they know my schedule, and I've used more than about 2/3 of my time that I usually use on this meditation, and they're going to be up in just about 10 minutes demanding their breakfast, so I better move. My 7 objectives are as follows. Number 1, to be always ready to die, which I've discussed now in great detail. Number 2, to make good and effective use of my time, to not waste my days. I think that number 2 really feeds into the number 1, right? I mean, it's given the fact that I work really hard not to waste my days. Given that that's the case, I'm not in a position now with these 2 calls from the doctor. I'm not in a position to think, oh my gosh, what have I done with my time? I've done really good things with my time. my time has, for years now, I've been making really good use of every single day. So, it's not like I have to regret anything in that capacity. 3, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. I've done that. The Good Life Creed is the consequence of that endeavor, and I think it's in a very good state. 4, to cultivate good emotional reactions. I think I'm reacting really pretty well to this news as well as just about every news. 5, to recognize my true limits and my to perform good actions, just to do good things throughout the day. I was talking to Angela on the beach yesterday. Remember, I've told you about Angela. She's actually does have cancer, and she's not taking her medicine, and she works from the beach every afternoon from her little tent. And I talked to her last night after my run, just after I talked to my doctor. In fact, I didn't discuss what the doctor said with me yet, because Angela does have cancer, and I don't know exactly how to. I don't want to be insensitive. I mean, it will be something I'll talk with her about as we proceed. I see her every day. But anyway, she commented as we were talking, and she just commented to me. She says, "You always pick up trash, huh?" I said, "Yeah, I really do." She says, "That's really good." And so that's, doing good things throughout the day is the thing. So Angela caught me doing my good deed. I try to pick up the trash as I'm running, anything that I can see, plastic floating in the sea, which usually the ocean here is pretty clean, but with all the storms we've had, it's washed a lot of trash down the rivers, and it appears on the breeze. So I had a handful of plastic dripping wet. And Angela actually and I have become friends. We are actually talking on email now, and I'm helping her out. I told you she got splashed by the ocean on her computer. She's a lawyer, and she does all of her writing up there, and she got too close to the waves, and a big wave splashed her computer. So I researched and found a computer repair place here in Huntington Beach, and I sent her the information, because when she learns once anybody learns I'm in IT, they think I know how to fix computers, which I don't know how to do. I'm not that kind of IT. All right. The last objective is to make good and I think did I skip it? Yeah, the second to last one is to make good and effective use. No, second to last one is to, excuse me, to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. And I could probably expound on that all day long about how this thing with the cancer. And then the 7 is to just do one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully as I speed through it. Now my 34 principles. Here's where I'll go a little fast. War, to fight against what I think is true. Reason, to have a good way to approach life and the propositions of truth. 3, the homunculus. I don't think I have a soul, but I do have a consciousness. 4, the Anchorhold. My consciousness is doomed. Since I don't have a soul and there's no heaven or hell or God or afterlife, once I die, that's the end of me. This body will rot away or be burned up or whatever the case will be, and that'll be or biodegrade. Whatever happens, my consciousness will wink out like a candle being snuffed out, or the music stopping, and that'll be the end of that. 5 is to 5 is the Feast of the Home of Good and Evil. Good and evil. I'm counting it out, gets me blown up, because it used to be the principle number 5 was the principle of purpose. It was that for years, and I can't get that out of my head. And now the principle number 5 is the Home of Good and Evil, which really throws me off if I try to count it out. So let's stop counting, Kurt, and just say them. The Home of Good and Evil. Right and wrong don't pervade the universe. They are opinions within our heads, so it's important we take it seriously. Next is the principle of purpose. My 3 purpose in life are to be a good husband and father, to be a virtuous human being, where virtue is defined as working and seeking after the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. And 3 is my personal mission, which is to share my book, Going Alone, namely the Good Life Creed. Next is the atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing and forever transforming. Then the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, including you and me. Then the pirate ride. Free will is an illusion. We are being jostled around by the universe like a cork on the ocean. We have about as much will as a leaf blown in the wind, although it sure does seem that way, doesn't it? The principle of maturity, and the sub-principles of wisdom, fortitude, and integrity. Maturity is that state we arrive at when we wisely remember our past successes and failures and have the fortitude to do better and enjoy the integrity of a life in alignment with our values. The social principle, we are social creatures, we need each other. We need to exercise diplomacy to identify and reach an agreement on justice, and then conspire to work together to make that happen. The principle of family. A family is a root component of our existence, the connections that we have either through a thing like a ring like this, or through the commitments and bonds that we create with any human being on earth, be it a family member, friend, coworker, even strangers on the street can be, relationships can be familial in a way. Like Angela and I, we've only known each other for a couple of weeks, but I feel like she's part of my family now, Angela on the beach. Extended family, that is. The public speaking, that's the next principle. To be very careful in what I say and what I write, to develop a good vocabulary, to use it well, to align it with my values and filter it through my emotions, and to also never engage in gossip or spread rumors. And then after that comes temperance, controlled consumption of things in life. Life will not go well. Expect speed bumps along the way. The horror show. Life will throw us horror-level curveballs sometimes, like the 2 calls with the doctor yesterday. Could be a horror show in store for me and my family if it is indeed cancer, and if it's a bad one. Well, it is a tumor, but if it, I don't know the difference between a benign tumor and a bad tumor, but it is a tumor that my doctors warned me could turn bad, and now it seems like my doctor's worried and wants to get the thing out of me. Excuse me, Ollie. There you go. So that could be a horror show for me. Just this principle is just a reminder that stuff is coming. If it's happening to people all around us, and it's coming for us now. It's happening to Angela now. It's happening to others that I know now. It's happening to people in this apartment complex now. And by that way, I'm not surprised when it comes from me, and I'm empathetic if I can, or sympathetic maybe, empathetic at best, with those who are going through it. Okay, next comes distraction. We keep ourselves distracted all our lives so that we don't have to see that the next principle, the great indifference, that there is no God, there is no management of the universe apparently going on. At least there's no good evidence to believe any of that's true. So I can't prove that, but I operate as though that's the case, because all the evidence that is proffered is frail and flimsy and poor, and usually based on wishful thinking. Next comes the best seat in the house. To always be all right with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing, all the while striving for better. Then the restless man, that feeling that we have usually in our youth and young adulthood about we want something more, an adventure. If we step upon that adventure, then we linger and embark upon the path of wildness, which is our route from one life to another. Yumiko and I are on the path right now, on our route towards a new life in Japan, because she and I like to have many chapters in our life. And then, and I would like to get safely to Japan if there's something bad, because I think I can manage things better there. It feels like a safer haven than here. And then finally, a great life adventure. Finally, in terms of these are 4 principles that go together. So it's not finally, it's number 3, the great life adventure. If we're restless and we step upon the path of wildness, we yield a great life adventure, which is a story in our life. And then finally, the risk of avoiding risk. The risk of not attending to that restlessness at a young age. And then it grows, and like a little tumor in my side, growing every year, and maybe becoming something bad later in life. That's a good simile, I think. Is that a simile or an analogy? I don't know. And then conversely, if we focus too much on the safe and sane, then we wind up with another tumor of sorts, which is the tumor of having not attended to the risk. And no, I just said that one. That's the same thing I just said. The other one is attending to the risk too deeply and not building a home and a family and a career and security and all of that. That's a risk too. Next is sin and damnation. There are the sins in my life relate to being untrue, believing things that may be untrue, and spreading rumors or engaging in gossip. And the consequence is damnation in the here and now. Complete oblivion, that's next. Since I don't believe in any of the aforementioned things that suggest that any afterlife, That means that from my perspective, once dead, dead, and we'll never see our loved ones again. We'll have no reunion with them. We'll never have a chance to reconcile any differences, and we'll not see any justice served after we're dead. So we need to work on all of that in the chance that we have in the here and now, in this brief years of life. Season of philosophy. Just a caution to be ready to write down the words when they come. The bullseye aim. No, script writing. Script writing is a new principle that I describe planning out the days and moments ahead. Bullseye aim. A reminder that things sometimes don't go well. Shoot for the mark, but usually miss. Arena and utility. Life is an arena for the development of objectives and principles that we can use towards our better living. I think the dogs are keyed off. They know they know my speaking, because he's starting to get restless as I get near the end. Maybe it's not a matter of time. Maybe they hear it in my voice, because I always do this the same way every morning. That was the bullseye aim, the uphill climb, finishing today higher up the mountain of life than before. Not like the mountain goes anywhere. It's not a destination. It's just an ascent. I like that. Arena and utility. Yeah, we're talking about life as an arena for the development of principles and objectives, using this. There we go, I got that one. Then comes the principle called nothing is enough, a brute suggestion towards simplicity. And then finally, the principle of fun, a reminder to have fun today, remember the fun of yesterday, and to plan for some fun to come. There we go. Got through the creed, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to have some fun today. I'm going to have fun, namely through the walks that I'll take with the dogs and my wife, the run that I'll have on the beach, and the swim. He's yawning. He knows I'm done. That, and then the watching a TV show with my wife and having a great dinner with her, and planning out the remainder of our trip. Just tomorrow's my last day of work before the vacation starts. Okay, now let's plan out the day. I'll finish this video, upload it. I'll read my Bible. Then I'll a chapter from the Bible, as I do every day. Then I'll feed the dogs, walk the dogs, or let them out at least if they don't want to walk, because it's still a little cold. And then I'll get started on my day. I'll fire up the computer and get to work. I'll have a nice walk, as I said, with my wife and dogs later. I talked about all that. I'll do all that stuff, and that'll be my day. And I will call that surgeon and make schedule the pre-surgical appointment to get this thing out of me. I think that's it. So I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. And with that, my life is done, if not finished. Take care.